Hey gang, so today we're looking at something from GEEONE. This time they have sent over the Cybercore by Seki with the bead accessory, I guess. It doesn't really have a name if you look at it on the site. All Zerk and gold colored Zerk, I guess. This thing has a couple of extra features on it. It's kind of a fun one to play with, although I don't think it's for everybody. This is gonna be for a certain type of fidgeter with certain hand sizes. We're gonna see about that. And just also, there's just gonna be the people who just love cool looking stuff. I mean, say what you want. The color combination of this with the bead, with the custom lanyard is actually pretty gorgeous, I think. Anyways, we're gonna take this, me, not you, I'm gonna take this apart piece by piece by piece. This thing is gonna be fully disassembled because there's a lot to look at with this guy. I'm making a mess out of this. I gotta stop. So let's get right to the review. It's the Cybercore by Seki. Let's go. Okay, here we go with the Cybercore. So we have the Cybercore and we have the extra lanyard bead. These are both Zerk. I mean, this is gorgeous to look at. The design is fantastic. This also comes with GEEONE's braiding service here. So they actually added the braid on. So this, I mean, first of all, it looks fantastic. This is like really, really nice looking. It has two sort of main functions. One is this mechanical wheel. And if you have a lanyard on there, you may not even know that that's an option. It doesn't really stand out, but it's actually a really nice mechanical wheel. And if you hold it from the lanyard, by gripping here, you can actually get some pretty good functionality out of it. The second is this rod. Now this is mechanical, and we can actually see, let me see here if we get it close enough, although I know it gets a little too bright sometimes, but we can see we've got some divots in here, so we know that there is a ball running along this side and this side. So clearly inside here, there are springs pushing, I'm assuming it's a ball, could be a plunger, but I'm pretty sure it's a ball, pushing outwards from both sides into this groove. So we get this motion. Now, the trick with this one, though, the extra little feature is on the sides, we have these switches. So here we have these little switches on the side, and each switch has a little kind of indentation or a groove. And what you do is you put your fingernail in there and you pull down. And what that'll do is that actually rotates a little arm that's inside, because currently there are two tiny little arms that are sticking out this way, and they're preventing this bar from sliding all the way up. But when we release the bars, now the bars are out of the way, and we can do this. Now, this actually has two sort of play levels to it as well. First is we can just push and flick, which can be kind of fun. You can actually go the opposite way to open it. But the other little bonus in here is there's a spring that lets you push back. See that? You can push back, and then it flips in. Now, this is a much more interesting way to play with this. However, it's also trickier. This is kind of challenging for your fingers, because what happens is when you push up, this is the grip, right? You're kind of gripping hard, and so when you push, you want to do that. Problem is, it closes on your finger. So there's something about this where you have to kind of adjust your grip to, I'll call it a bit of an abnormal grip. You have to shape your grip for the fidget. Now, I will say, once you get used to it, it's neat. I will say, I do get, sometimes I get cramps in my hand trying to reach all the way out. So there is this strange stress that gets put on the hand where you're grabbing here. You don't want to roll forward, which is a comfortable grip. So you're kind of like rolling off, which extends your hand in a weird way. And then you're also trying to push down. So, you know, this is one of those like kind of acquired tastes. And again, that's only if you want to be doing this little spring action. See my finger roll off? Because I can't do this comfortably. When I push up, these fingers want to roll out. So that is something about this that this may just not be for my hand shape. I don't know. I do find when I use this, I tend to do this mostly. Or up and down. The little spring push is a bit trickier for me to do. Again, just because I find I don't quite have the grip. And again, I can do it, but it does sort of cause this stress across the back of my hand and into my wrist. So I don't know. I don't know what hand shape this is for, to be honest. I think it's really just something where it's a personal preference that you try it. I'm sure some people are going to love this. I'm sure some people will not like it at all. You know, the fidgets are a very personal thing. It comes down to how you work with them, how you play with them, how you hold them. Really, you know, this is another just simple, just to kind of forego the spring. But the spring is kind of a feature, and I just find it a little bit tough for me. I find it a little tough to kind of push out and down like that. But man, does it ever look cool. Okay, let's take this apart. So we've got, this is interesting. Now, when the lanyard comes, it will come separately, or the bead, sorry, lanyard bead. What you will get is just the bead, and you'll get this little hook set, and then you have to tie your own lanyard cord to it. Or again, you just use GEEONE's service. I mean, if you're going to get both, you might as well, you know, pay the little bit extra, get them to attach the cord. Okay. So once we have the screws out like this, the other thing is, now these are stuck in here pretty good at the moment. Let me see if I can get it out. Come on. Okay, hold on. So I want to show you something. Okay. Because when you get this, there we go. Let's see if we can get some focus on here. It comes with these little brass caps. So these little brass caps, or cones, go into the hole first. And that's what the screws go into, because there's no threads in this hole. The threads are actually in the caps. See that? So that's the other thing, is you can just pull it out, I guess, with the screw, because the little caps are what's threaded. So if you have nothing in here, of course, you're like, well, how does that even keep this in, right? How, if it's only threaded in the cap, how does everything stay together? But you have to remember, when you have these screws in here like this, and you have a screw on each side, and then you have a cap. Here, let's do this quickly. So I'm going to put this little cap here. Come on. So see, with the threaded cap on the end, then the screw can't escape. So the cap keeps the screw in place, and the screws are sort of threaded through the holes, so they can't lift off of here. So it's a really interesting design. Do not lose these brass caps. That's the only way you're going to be able to get these screws to stay on. Okay, and again, this bead is great. I mean, that's might be a little hard to see, but this thing is spinning. These beads I find spin forever. I'm not going to take this apart. I can't take it apart because the lanyard rope is running through it, and I don't want to take the rope apart. But we know what's in here. We've all seen the beads, the bearings. Okay. Now, okay, so here's the big thing. Now, I want to show you first, before we get into this, these little switches. So right now, let's see if I can get up a little closer here. So inside, that's where the little switches come out here. And so what they do is when they come out, let's see, well, let's pop them out. See? Now it's out. And let's do the other one. Okay, so now we have, oh, come on, focus. We have this arm and this arm. And what they do is they sit in this track. So now, of course, I have this locked. I can't move it back because the little arms are preventing it from moving back into place. But now if I just move them out of the way, see, then we can slide this back into place. So that's how these switches work, because they just kind of lock it and prevent it from sliding out. All right, time to take this apart. This is going to be a little, it's always a little scary because I don't know what we're getting into, but I see 4 screws. So that's where I am going to start. Now, what I don't know is if this matters, the position of the bar, if that matters or not. But I'm going to be careful, and I'm going to assume when you're taking these things apart, it's important to assume that everything can explode at any second. Now, maybe this plate is going to expose another screw set underneath. I don't know. This little plate here. Okay, so these pins, we have this pin and this pin. This pin clearly keeps the wheel in. This pin seems to be a stopper of some kind. I do want to get this out because I want to see what that actually looks like. I might have to switch up. There we go. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. This is very, very tiny in terms of detail. So let's see if we can. All right. So I am using my wallet right now to try to get a slightly darker background so this isn't so washed out. The camera's going to have a really tough time seeing this, but on here, there are 2 tiny little divots that you can see, and I'll mark these on the screen. Those 2 little tiny holes, see, are they only, yeah, they're on the one side. So those 2 little tiny holes that we see right there are for this plunger. So this tiny little plunger, I mean, man, this is so small, but that is actually a little plunger. So that little ball lives inside the grooves there, which I guess gives the switch like the two positions on and off. It locks in both sides. Okay, so we have that out. Where do we go from here? So where do we go from here? How do we get this apart? I feel like we're missing something. I am missing something here. There's something that's going to let me take this whole thing apart. I just have yet to find it. Okay, that's first plate. Might as well take this side off. Sometimes clues are hidden in what seems to be a very obvious place. So I'm hoping maybe there's a clue behind this plate, although I don't think there is. These seem to be pretty identical on both sides, but let's see. And oh, there we go. Right there. Those are our screws to take this apart. Okay, so here's the lesson. You open up one side, doesn't mean the other side's gonna be the exact same. Okay, this is cool. This works. Now let's get, I wonder if I can keep this in here. This seems to be in here pretty solid. So I'm gonna hope that this stays in. That's the hope. This is one thing that's always kind of annoying, is that it's a different type of screw when you get inside. I wish they would just standardize their screws. Let's take this apart. Oh, it's a really long one. Okay, now those screws will come out. I'm going to gently lift. I say gently because I know I'm dealing with balls and springs in here. Here's our little plate. Okay. Well, this little guy came out, which is no surprise. I mean, I figured that was going to come out eventually. Let's just get this out of here. Okay. What do we have inside? Wow. So we have, oh, see what I mean about things popping all the time? You got to be super careful with this stuff. Here, let me get this just back on here for now. Dude, you're totally ruining the video. There we go. Okay, so we have, inside this plate, we have a bearing. And we have a bearing inside here. And we have these balls. Now the balls are only on one side. Okay, there's nothing on this side. This just sits here. And where did I put, oh, this guy keeps bouncing around. So as you can see, this can get really messy opening these up, but I think we're good. So I'm switching to a slightly wider tipped tweezer here, just to have a little bit more grabbing surface on the ball. If your surface area is too small and you use a tip that's too fine, then it'll just sort of, it'll make the ball shoot out because it's not grabbing enough surfaces, and it's gonna just kind of pinch it instead. So you want something that's slightly flatter. Okay. Oh, All right, so we know dealing with this is a bit of a trick. All right, now we have our plate. This is our little Seki plate here that comes off. Just gonna put that right back in. This gets held by these really, really tiny little edges here that stick out, and they go into these little holes. We can see the little indents. So this is one of those things where it doesn't really do much until both sides are on there, forcing it together. So, you know what? You can sit there for now. Okay, so lastly is our rotating ball. Now, how does this work? Well, I shouldn't say rotating ball, sorry, the arm, the way the arm kind of snaps back. So we know there's a spring. There is a spring involved, right? So the idea here is we have this spring, this coiled spring right here, sitting there. Let me take this off. So inside we have this little coiled spring, and it's got a little part that's sticking up, sticking outwards. You can see that little part that sticks up goes into this hole. So on the other side of the barrel here, we have this hole. So that's pretty simple. That just sits there. So it sits in the hole. So then as we turn it, let's see, we just have to line it up. Now, there's nothing keeping, oh wait, oh yes, no, the spring doesn't actually move, which is nice. So we don't really have to worry about lining it up. You don't have to worry about the spring rotating out of position, basically. Okay, so then you can see here, when we rotate it back, the spring snaps it back. Now inside, okay, let's go all the way in. Because inside here, we have mechanical as well. So I know by looking at this that I've got a ball pushing down or a plunger. So it's either ball and spring on each side or a plunger. I'm guessing a plunger just because of the space in here, but who knows? And there is one screw right in there. Now we're going to be lucky enough to have this be the same size. Okay, it is the same size. All right. Let's go. Okay. Now I'm going to be very careful in lifting this up. Wow, it is a spring. So we have a spring and a ball. We have a spring that fell out. Okay. Okay, so we have our ball here. We have these two little pins that hold this in place. So that way we don't get this, we can rotate the bar and the whole kind of knuckle here won't rotate with it because these pins hold it in place. All right, now this is tricky. Luckily the spring is sitting in place because the ball, like the spring has to sit on top of the ball, right? So as I lift it, or as I flip it over, I'm gonna have to be quick. I'm gonna have to flip this over so that the ball sits perfectly lined up with the spring. Now there is another option. I can try. As long as I have one side that's happy, we could try another method. Okay, let's try this. So this side, I know there's another ball. I know this is the exact same thing underneath here. So I am going to, wow, get back here. Come on. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make sure this side is flat down. And I'm going to hold it upside down like this. Okay, so I am pushing down with my finger because there's a ball in here and a spring, right? Everything wants to come apart on this. Like even these two pins want to come out. As I flip it upside down, they're starting to come out. So I have to be kind of quick and precise. So let's see if this works. So I have this side with a ball and a spring. I'm pushing downwards because I want to push it into the track. You know what? Let me, before I get into that, let's get, I'm even going to get the pins set up properly. Okay. Now I don't have to worry about anything falling out. So I have this pressed in place. I'm holding tight. I'm going to press down, and then I just have to line up the two pieces together, and that's it. And I am holding tightly because now I still have to screw this back in. All right, there. One part secure. This is always kind of a hold your breath moment when I do this. Okay, so we know that this is where the spring goes. So I'm going to put this in a position here and make sure that everything lines up. Hopefully. There. Minutes. So now I'm going to take the bearing and we're going to put that back here. Now we're on. And then we have our tricky little area here where these balls want to come out. Now, as we put this back together, the one thing not to forget is we have to put our plate back in place. So we have these little tabs. Okay, we have these tabs sticking out on all four sides of the plate, and we have these little indents. So put the tab in place. And as we can see on this side, this little groove, that's where these balls kind of move into, which gives us that mechanical sound. So I'm going to very gently drop this down. Now I'm doing it gently because I know that these balls want to pop out. Now this is kind of the trick here, which is getting everything back into place. And sometimes it might take a couple tries. Okay, we're good. Everybody's back. Okay, so let's take these thicker screws, the proper screws. There we go. Man, this has been such a long video. Okay. Oh, maybe a bit too tight. There we go. I mean, that's something to consider, is you don't want to over tighten. Want to be careful. We're good. Yep, works. Okay. The next part, which is the slightly trickier one that I was not looking forward to, is putting these little posts and pins back together. So, what I know is these little divots. We have these, let's see if we can see this. These two little tiny bumps go into place, or they are there to accept these little plungers. Now, we have a plunger and we have the actual pin. So I'm going to take the pin first and I'm going to put this into place. And I want to test. I don't think I've put that in the correct way. So on this side. Okay, that's going to happen. Bit of a gap here too. I think I'm going to tighten this up a tiny bit more. You don't want to over tighten it, but there also shouldn't be a gap. Okay. So we want the pin in place. And we know the little divots have to be pointing upwards. There we go. This is going to be tricky because this is like just so small. Okay, so now my head might get into this shot just because I have to be able to see what I am doing. Okay, so this little plunger went flying and I had to just spend the last 5 minutes with a magnet going through my room trying to find it. So now I have it back, and let's make sure I have that in the right way. This just kind of proved my point of always being careful with tweezers and round objects that you use tweezers on because they will propel like little rockets. So we're going to do this again. The plunger, the little ball is facing downward. We want that to face down into this little button. So I am being very careful. And I want to just make sure that goes in. Perfect. We're in. Oh, man. Okay. One side down. That was not fun. Okay, we're going to put our plate back on. And once the plate's back on, I can test out the little switch to make sure that everything is working. I just don't want to do it before the plate's screwed in because the plate will sort of offer that security to make sure that nothing pops out. Okay. So we're in. So we see the switch, and then our little fingernail pulls it out. Okay. So that's all that for side one. And then okay, we have to get the plungers into both sides. So once you get the plungers in, or the plungers, these little kind of collars, then you can put the lanyard arm over. Now I might be using the wrong bit here. I don't know. Let's see. Nope. And we just screw it right in. One side and the other. That's it. Okay, gang, this has been a long one. This is the CyberCore fully disassembled, reassembled. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go grab a coffee. I would recommend you never take this apart if you don't have to. That's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for you. You will never have to take this apart because now you know what's inside. All right, gang. Thanks for watching.